Welcome back to Count Me In, IMA's podcast about all things affecting the accounting and finance world. This is your host, Adam Larson, and today you are listening to episode 174 of our series. In this episode, you will hear from Pedro Barros, VP of Finance at Remote. At Remote, Pedro is responsible for analyzing financial performance, for budgeting and forecasting, managing all accounting operations, and providing strategic guidance to accelerate business expansion. Over the last 5 years, he has been focusing on high-growth tech companies and was previously head of finance at Codacy. He joined Count Me In to share his knowledge on building, scaling, and managing a successful global finance team. So keep listening as we head over to the conversation now.
So I understand Remote, your company is growing very rapidly. And I'm just curious to kind of kick off our conversation here. How are you thinking about structuring the finance team during this growth phase? And what are some of the key positions or key areas within the finance team you're really focusing on?
Thanks, Mitchell. I joined the team as the first finance hire around 2 years ago, and it's a team of over 50 people today. I started the team top down, so we really went for expertise and individuals with subject matter expertise. But it was a hard combination because we also wanted folks that could settle in well in a very fast and growing company. And we found them. I've hired 2 or 3 directors that really accelerated all the finance functions, a group controller, then a treasurer, and a bit later than that, director of tax. And all of these individuals really accelerated how the finance function was structured, how we were delivering to the business, and how the finance was partnering across the organization.
And now I know we will talk a little bit, as far as scaling everything and how all of this ultimately plays out, for the finance function. But as far as the individuals go, and as you're going through this hiring process, for our listeners who maybe are looking to jump into new finance roles and things that are evolving across the profession in various industries, what are some of the qualities that you're really looking for in a finance hire? And, as everything is growing so rapidly, a fast growing company like Remote, what are some of the skills that you're really, targeting?
I touched on my previous question around deep subject matter expertise. It's folks that can have a lot of ownership in their role. So someone that can complement what I'm doing and not necessarily build redundancy. So having folks that have done it in the past and can come very quickly, heads down, and have a high impact is critical. Someone that can nurture teams, because we knew at the pace that we were going that we would have to grow teams very rapidly. And at the same time, we had to hire individuals that were very tech savvy on the aspect of automation and how to make systems work for them, and not just grow the team to address the growing pains and the growing needs of the organization as we were scaling very, very fast.
And you kind of just alluded to it a little bit, but we were talking about individuals, the finance team. How does that really fit into the overall organization, right? So what we're really trying to figure out here is, how does Remote manage the company culture and make sure that everybody, plays their part and fits in a cohesive team?
Yeah. On your first point, the finance team at Remote is a bit different from many other organizations, as we are core to a lot of the product development that we do, a lot of the services that we provide. So we tend to, it's a subject, like global employment is a subject, is very close historically with finance teams, and we have a lot of expertise in the team to help enable the overall company. In terms of how Remote culture is managed in terms of fast growing and how we can sustain it, it was something that was designed even before the company was created, which were our values. Both Job and Marcelo, our founders, are very committed to the culture of the company through values alignment. we have a lot of cultural diversity, as you can imagine, by having folks in 60 plus countries across the globe working for us. So our expectation is we'll have a lot of cultural diversity, but the ambition is that folks will always work at remote with deep values alignment, and this goes with excellence, ownership, kindness. It's one of the, I think it's the glue of the company. It's the value of kindness, and something I've have alluded to in terms of automation and the scalability of the business.
That's great. I know, oftentimes, historically, I think accounting finance teams, at least the perception is they've kind of been siloed, right? Kind of the smaller group, very focused on the numbers and getting the job done. But, that has evolved so much. And companies like yours, the finance function is really more or less the backbone for everything. And kind of, what I've seen through various conversations here, the team that's really driving those core values and just that cross-functional collaboration, the finance team, and those are the individuals who can really, portray those values and gain support and really partner to bring the business forward. So I think, aligning core values like that is certainly key. With that sentiment, the idea that global diversity and following these values, what else is it that your company is doing that we can share with our listeners that would help other accounting, finance functions, finance teams, grow and manage successfully like you are, on this global basis? We're getting back to the topic here. How can we help other accounting and finance teams scale globally?
I think there are some fundamental things that the remote is doing well, and it's working well for us. One is the working asynchronously, means that you do your job and you work whenever it fits you, it fits your schedule, it fits your motivation when you're stronger. Maybe it's not from 9 to 5, or maybe it is. It's independent from that. It's much more focused on objectives and not on the achievements, more than on activity per se, and if you are on at certain hours. And the way we are doing it, based a lot on documentation, has managed remote to grow very, very fast. Our finance team has grown massively, and very successfully continues supporting the business and delivering to our objectives. And I have folks from Korea to San Francisco, and we are very much independent from where anyone is, because they do their thing. They understand what they need to do. Every individual has very clear objectives and a drive for excellence. They take ownership on their projects and the work they need to do, and all is documented. So when someone is asleep, there's a document for me to act upon, and next day that person is live at whatever time, and they can pick up on that. So there's always this sense of always continuous work. What remote has also enabled in terms of global distributed companies is hiring the best individuals anywhere in the world. So folks have more expertise in a subject here or there, or have been more faced to fast growing companies. For example, in US, you have a lot of expertise of individuals that have faced the growth of companies on a very fast scale, and we can hire them, and we are very geography agnostic. Obviously, sometimes we need to hire for certain geographies as an objective, but where folks are, it's up to them.
Before we get into the geographies in the different countries, I understand the continuous work and the opportunity to work independently. Is there ever a time when you do have the whole team together? Are there certain points, maybe it's months or, throughout the year, that regardless of where you are, you try to get as many people together as possible?
We thought about that March 2020, but has happened that it didn't happen. Look, we grew very, very fast. So by the time we already thought that the pandemic was getting a bit slower and we could potentially connect, like the team was massively bigger. Different folks in different geographies in the world were facing challenges, and we are very respectful of the needs of each one of us. And we're not going to ask anyone to go through airport trips when they were facing the heat of a pandemic. Now we've grown to a size where more likely we'll be doing team-focused get-togethers in real life, for example, a finance team or a tax team and an FP&A team, as it makes sense, or some geographically focused get-togethers. But in real life, it hasn't happened at a large scale. What we do, and I think there is a lot of purpose when we do it, is weekly all hands in the finance team. We connect one-on-one weekly, at least, so that at least we direct managers and managers, and sometimes some critical stakeholders or individuals in the team that are doing certain projects that require closer connection with each other, and it's done with a lot of purpose. Because when you decide to go on a call with someone on a Zoom video, it's to really to understand what are their challenges, how can you solve them. If it's a synchronous meeting, it's to ensure that it's all things are addressed there. And we do something that is also important when you touch the in real life is, in these one-on-ones, we try to connect as individuals. Like work can be done in documents, but I try to spend time with my team to let them know how I'm going, how things in my life are going, connect with my colleagues, my manager, and others, how things are going on their end. And to be very frank, the connection you have across the firm is very, very strong. Obviously, by now I don't know everyone personally, but I still know a lot of people directly, and we have a very close connection, which is super interesting.
That's great. It's a very compassionate culture, it sounds like, and a very compassionate approach to building the team. So I certainly appreciate that. And then now taking a step back, as we were talking about, different geographies and the different individuals that you're working with, what kind of infrastructure, people, processes, systems do you look to build first as you go across, different countries, and how do you integrate these different processes and such into the overarching, finance function and tying back really to those values and the goals of the organization?
We have an international expansion team specialized in growing remote. And whilst in most of the companies you internationalize for commercial reasons, remote by default wants to be global so we can cater for our customers. And not that we want to expand to a certain country because we have specific commercial needs there, but we want to provide a global reach to everyone. So we are expanding globally very, very fast. And we have an international expansion team very focused on setting up entities across the world, understanding local requirements, legal implications, working with the tax team on tax implications, etc. And that's usually the first couple of steps. Treasury as well, setting up our banking infrastructure locally. We tend to work with some of the largest global banks so that we can accelerate also opening locally as well. And usually these are the first steps. Very quickly, with the initiation of operations in a country, we set up a local tax team that we work with, usually outsourced with one of our main partners or a local partner if they do not cover that specific geography. We have an ambition to bring as much as possible in-house, so likely with time, and if it's a major geography, we'll have that expertise in-house. In terms of systems, we have been implementing SAP since we were 30 people in a company. We did a very fast implementation of 43 countries, and now we are rolling out to over the next year to 90 plus countries with the ambition of being in 150 plus countries very, very soon. So on that, with that, what we ensured with SAP is that we had a scalable, highly collaborative and system with a very good expertise in the space, and that unlocks massively how we can scale our operations globally.
Now, as you scale and grow, you go into these different geographies. What is your approach to fundraising? Would you recommend going with more opportunistic fundraising? Is there anything that you consider a benchmark or a line that you really want to make sure you're following?
Remote has been very fortunate that we always attracted very, very good investors to the company, and we have been growing healthy with their support and the fundraising that they have and investment they have been making in the firm. In terms of opportunistic fundraising, if it makes sense and you have an ambition and you know exactly where you're heading and you can make good use of those funds, it makes sense. But opportunity usually comes from you being prepared. And if you're already prepared to take action, it means that there is an underlying perception that you'll have good use for it, you are open to it, and you understand that by doing so you de-risk the business, you de-risk you achieving your vision and your mission, and which usually is a tool and it's not an outcome, fundraising. And I see it very much in that way. Market dynamics sometimes are more volatile or more unpredictable, and if you secure now, why should you be focusing on a very lengthy process in 6 months or 12 months from now instead of doing it today? Obviously, fundraising comes with dilution, so it's always the other side of the coin. And I think you as a leader in the firm, finance or CEO or founders optimize for that. But usually that opportunistic fundraising comes from you being already exposed and open to it more than, oh, it happened.
Absolutely. And, I'd like to kind of wrap up our conversation today as we're talking about building, scaling, managing successful global finance teams. And we addressed the independence of individuals and, everybody working remotely. For our listeners and anybody who is interested in scaling their business or possibly going to remote finance teams or still struggling with that aspect of it following the last couple of years, what are just some considerations or implications, that you would like to point out to make sure that everybody is aware of, what goes into a team such as yours?
I think there are some fundamental points that we touched earlier on, which are on the team values, on the team connection. And because growing internationally remote teams, it's not easy. You must do it with purpose, and you must do it with care, and understand that if you're hiring individuals that have the values alignment to succeed in such an environment, in a company that is working fully remote. I think we have been increasingly more exposed to it. So each one of us is also learning how to succeed in such an environment. But when you're growing your team, that is a specific consideration that I would very, very much focus on. Obviously, then you have other more infrastructure type of considerations on taxation of individuals, especially if they are nomads and they are moving around the globe. Where are they going to pay their taxes? Can you hire them locally? Do you do it as a contractor because it's really a contractor type of relationship, or you, by doing so, you are exposing to misqualification, and you rather do it as a permanent employee, also for equality between them and the rest of your team that potentially are headquarters or are working in a country that you have established operations. And For companies, this also opens the point on permanent establishment, which by having someone operating on your behalf in another country, do they increase the risk of the company on permanent establishment or not? And this is assessment that needs to be done on a case-by-case basis. Almost just a profile of the employee that you hire remotely can trigger a higher risk of permanent establishment, and maybe others that seem to be similar do not, and this should be assessed, but it's a critical consideration that we take when hiring someone internationally.
This has been Count Me In, IMA's podcast, providing you with the latest perspectives of thought leaders from the accounting and finance profession. If you like what you heard and you'd like to be counted in for more relevant accounting and finance education, visit IMA's website at www.imanet.org.